News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's your weekend forecast. Getting warmer. It will cool tonight to 50 as a low. Tomorrow a mix of sun and clouds and back up to 80 as our high. Similar on Sunday with partly sunny and partly cloudy conditions and a high reaching 85. Monday also pretty warm with a high of 86. Next week cooler with highs in the 60s. Rain possible on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point. Ooh, I like when you press that one.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblum, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk. You're on the Sports Talk Media Network on this Friday night, not just any Friday night here in South Carolina. It's the opening night of the big baseball series, what we like to call the Palmetto Base Brawl for it all. South Carolina, Clemson, South Carolina maybe doesn't have the national impact of previous years when both teams were highly ranked. Still, it's still South Carolina and Clemson when they get together in anything, of course. It's important to us here in South Carolina, and this stacks up to be a really good matchup this weekend. Both teams are off to good starts. We know South Carolina's pitching is a little bit banged up, and they're going to be shorthanded in that category, but they do have other good arms that they can slide in, and if you're Mark Kingston and company, you hope you can get some good innings out of these guys and not tax your bullpen too much. Meantime, Clemson comes in 8-0, and they look very good in every aspect of the game so far. Their pitching's been good. Their defense has been excellent. Their hitting has been outstanding. They've been hitting for power. So we shall see what plays out over the next 3 days. First tonight here at Founders Park, and then tomorrow over at Segra Park in the Bull Street District of Columbia. I was by there on my way over here to Founders Park, and they're already setting up for the Fan Fest tomorrow. Don't forget the Fan Fest begins at noon tomorrow. It is free if you don't have a ticket to the game. And as of the other day, they still had some singles available and some standing room tickets available. So go to the Fan Fest, enjoy that. They're going to have alcohol. They're going to have food. They're going to have all kinds of beverages. They're going to have Tokyo Joe performing. It's going to be a great time. And that'll start at noon and run right up to game time. And then you can go in and watch the ball game at 4. And then Sunday, over to Doug Kingsmore Stadium in Clemson to wrap it up. The weather should be just perfect for the weekend. I don't think there's much of a chance of rain, if any. Temperatures are going to be just fine. I mean, it was very warm today in Columbia. It's cool. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was cooler today than it was yesterday, but still it was nice. And it's going to be a little cooler tonight, maybe even chilly, but nothing to the extreme where it's going to be real cold. Then I think through the weekend we're supposed to be pretty good with the weather as well. We are here at Founders Park awaiting tonight's first pitch between the Gamecocks and the Tigers. It's going to be an excellent pitching matchup between Sanders and Anglin. We'll give you the lineups in just a moment. Chris Burgess is making his way back to his home in Sardis after, it wasn't a quick trip to Pensacola because they went down on Monday, but they only stayed one game because Coastal lost last night to Georgia Southern. Not a good performance by the Chanticleers at all, so their season is over. He's heading back home. And we bring in out of our bullpen the wily left-hander, Matt Smith, always on standby to help out in a pinch for Sports Talk and, of course, baseball. The old Spartanburg Methodist slick fielding third baseman. This is right up his alley. Good evening, Smitty. How are you?
It really is, Corn. I'm jealous of you of all the great college baseball you're going to see this weekend. I think there's a chance that that both coaches go to their best arms out of the pen tonight too. So I think you're going to see some really good pitching tonight, and then over the weekend, that's when the bats might take over, especially for Clemson. I don't know how many arms South Carolina, if they're going to be able to hold up through the weekend, but tonight's ball game ought to be a great one, and I mean I expect this to go right down to the ninth with the way that the arms that they have at their disposal on a Friday night.
Well, let's hope we have some excitement and some strategy and some drama throughout the weekend. Here are your starting lineups tonight as announced by both teams for the visiting Tigers. It'll be Dylan Brewer out of the home of champions Latta, leading off for the Tigers, playing center field. Tyler Corbett will bat second, play second. Caden Grice will bat third, play right. Cooper Engel will DH and hit fourth. Briar Hawkins will be the first baseman, hitting fifth. Max Wagner, your third baseman, hitting sixth with a 474 average. Chad Ferry will start in left and bat seventh. Jonathan French behind the plate. He had the big home run against Upstate the other day. He's batting eighth. Benjamin Blackwell, your shortstop, and he is batting ninth for the Tigers. They don't have anybody in their lineup hitting under 261. Only three in their lineup are not hitting 300. But they're going to see better pitching, of course, this weekend. For the Gamecocks, it'll be the freshman sensation, Michael Braswell, leading off, playing shortstop. He's hitting 419. Kason Horning, who's now getting more play, he'll be the DH, hitting 385. He'll hit second. So a couple of freshmen atop the lineup for the Gamecocks. Braylon Wimmer, the Gamecocks' leading hitter at 485. He'll bat third. He'll be at second base. Andrew Eister, let me rephrase what I just said. Andrew Eister is the Gamecocks' leading hitter at 514. So you got 485, 514 back to back. Eister in the four hole. He'll be playing right field, and he also has 3 homers to lead the Gamecocks and 17 RBIs. Then you've got Brant Belk in left field. He's hitting fifth. Kevin Madden at third base hitting sixth. Josiah Seitler is going to play first base. He's been dealing with an oblique injury that's keeping him from pitching, and he will play first base and hit in the seventh spot. Colin Burgess behind the plate hitting eighth, and Matt Hogan will be in center field for the Gamecocks, and he will bat ninth. The bottom end of the Gamecocks offensively, not strong. Seitler at 158, Burgess 227, Hogan 190. So compare the lineups. I mean, the Gamecocks have plenty of good hitters up top. They seem to have a bit of a hole at the bottom. Clemson does not appear to have any holes in their lineup right now, just based on the averages. Starting pitchers, Mac Anglin for the Tigers, right-hander, 2-0, 10 innings. He's allowed 1 home run in 10 innings, and he has allowed, let's see here, what else? 14 strikeouts and 5 walks so far for him in his 2 starts. It'll be Will Sanders for the Gamecocks. He is a 2-0, 3.0 ERA. Did I mention that Anglin does not have an ERA? He has not allowed an earned run. Sanders is 2-0, 3.00 ERA in 12 innings. He has allowed 9 hits, 4 earned runs. He has struck out 8, and he has walked 1. So he's been good with his control with just the 1 walk. So there you go. We'll see what happens tonight between the Gamecocks and the Tigers in the first of this 3-game series here at Founders Park, and then over to Segra Park tomorrow in downtown Columbia, and then up to Clemson on Sunday afternoon. I'll tell you, Smitty, you can tell it's the South Carolina-Clemson rivalry weekend because the buzz outside the stadium is noticeable. People lining up early to pick up their passes and get their tickets and get in their seats. The parking lots are filling up early. There's just a different feel when it's a South Carolina-Clemson weekend, and that's a great thing to feel. And I'm glad that the baseball series remains very high up on the list of important sports dates in our state. This is one of the big weekends every year, if you ask me.
Oh, I'd agree with that, Corn. I think everybody's jacked up about this. Clemson looking to prove itself. And last year they really got kicked in the teeth emotionally by South Carolina in this series. And so Clemson wants to turn that around. And they really want to prove that this 8-0 start is not fiction, that this is who they are this year. that, that they are, as you said, they're reflective of those statistics. They are a complete team. They did play a couple of tomato cans early, but, we've seen a lot of these players do it before. Caden Grice is legit. That guy hit it, he did it against ACC pitching last year. So that's something to watch out for. You mentioned Will Sanders and his control. Got to be careful tonight. If you fall behind any batters 2-0, you got Hawkins, you got French, you've got Grice out there. A lot of Clemson players with a lot of pop can take you deep. So that's something to watch out for. Sanders, he's got great control, great command. He has to stay ahead of those really good hitters who are on a hot streak right now.
All right, this is one of those days where you just got a gazillion things that going on besides this. We're here for this. Earlier today, the South Carolina women dispatched Arkansas in their opening game of the SEC women's tournament in Nashville. That would be in the quarterfinals. 76-54. The Gamecocks never trailed in the game, and they just gradually put away a team that played them kind of close in the regular season. So the Gamecocks win at 76-54 to move into the semifinals tomorrow. Leading the way was Boston with 17-14. So that's 22 consecutive double-doubles for her, I believe. Amir here had 16 points and 6 rebounds. So she gave great support. So inside, Gamecocks really was strong with 42 points in the paint to 26 for Arkansas, 54 rebounds for the USC women, 20 on the offensive glass. That led to 17, make that 19 second chance points. Both teams turned it over 17 times, and not much of a difference in the production there. So Amir had 16 and 6, and Boston had 17 and 14. They were the only Gamecocks in double figures, but they had plenty of scoring up and down the line. So South Carolina, the number 1 team in the country, big favorite to win the SEC championship, marches on. We'll hear from Dawn Staley in just a little bit. Smitty, you were in on the post game. Did she have anything significant to say?
Well, it's obvious this team right now is locked in defensively. She talked about that and about how well Aaliyah Boston is playing. The leadership on this team, everything is going their way. And I do have an update, and I'll update our story at SportsTalkSC.com. Ole Miss just knocked out Florida, which means we know South Carolina's opponent tomorrow. It will be South Carolina and Ole Miss in the semifinals tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
All right, very good. And, that final score, Ole Miss 70 and Florida 60. Not only that, today we've got more state championship basketball games being played down at USC Aiken. And Calhoun County has won the single A boys championship, and Military Magnet has won the single A girls championships. We've got the 4A teams crowned last night and the 1A teams crowned today. And underway now, you've got the 3A championship. Camden and Keenan are playing. It's 8-8 in the first quarter there, 2:43 left to play in the opening quarter. Also today, and we'll have some recruiting here in a little bit, G.G. Jackson named his top 6, 5 schools and the G League. The 5 schools are South Carolina, Auburn, Duke, North Carolina, Georgetown, the 5 that he has visited. Well, I think he's visited Auburn, come to think of it, 4 plus Auburn. And then the G League, as they still have that on the table. Though, in talking with his dad recently, didn't get the feeling the pro route was where they really wanted to go. He really wanted to go to college. But I guess they're going to keep that on the table at this particular time. So significant news there. After winning the state championship last night, G.G. Jackson and Ridgeview, they won the boys 4A state championship, and Rock Hill won the girls 4A state championship. And we've got other basketball going on. SoCon tournament. Citadel is leading East Tennessee State 55-53 with 11-18 to play in the ball game. 55-53 Bulldogs. Winthrop on top of High Point in the Big South, 13-5, 13:39 to play in the first half. Later, Charleston Southern. No, I take that back. Upstate has defeated Charleston Southern today, 72-62, that final score. So Upstate advances and really having a fine year and playing with heavy hearts for Coach Dave Dickerson, whose wife passed away earlier this week after a long battle with cancer. Longwood beat North Carolina A&T 79-69. 65. So that is it on the basketball front from a scoring standpoint. And let's see. We have coming up, Mike Morgan will join us 6:35 for a Friday night edition of Morgan on the Move. 7:05. It'll be Brian Ralphie on round ball. At 7:20, Jeff Owens in the fast lane talking NASCAR as they go racing at Las Vegas this weekend. 7:30, Birdies and Bogeys around South Carolina with George Bryan. We got all that coming your way. I'll be departing after we visit with Morgan about 6:45. I'll be departing to go in and watch the ball game, and I'll report back a couple of times to Smitty and to Pat in the final half hour of the show. I tell you what, Smitty, why don't we take a listen to what Dawn Staley had to say following today's win in the Gamecocks' first game of the SEC tournament, that win over Arkansas. If you want to lead us into that, we'll go ahead and listen to what Coach Staley had to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Another banner performance from Aaliyah Boston, and she right now is the personification of what this team is doing. 17 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. South Carolina, for everything they do, everything they do right, it starts on the defensive end. It starts with attitude, and Dawn Staley has created a monster, and they continue into the semifinals. And here's Coach Staley.
Teresa Walker, the Associated Press. Dawn, it seemed like the shots weren't falling early, maybe not so great through the game, but the one thing you all did really well, getting to the line and finishing there. How key is being able to lean on that maybe when the shots aren't falling the way you usually get them to go?
Yeah, Coach Boyer pointed out that, at one point in the third quarter, we were shooting 18%. And I'm like, we are making free throws. We need to be aggressive. Obviously, our shots weren't falling, so we had to continue to attack the basket, continue to attack the boards, and find a way to score. I mean, it's, you can't have too many empty possessions when you're playing teams in our league. So I thought we did a great job at balancing our missed shots with getting to the free throw line.
Dawn, what LA was able to do today, I know the game just ended just a couple minutes ago, but what did you notice about just her aggression and how she attacked the basket? And then two, what do you feel like you might have seen from her that you guys can rely on through the remainder of this tournament?
LA, you have to look at LA. We put her in a mixer, so to speak. She started out the year playing, the 4 spot. Henny got hurt early in the year and moved her to the point guard position. And then when Henny came back, we moved her back to the 4. And then she ended up going with her Canadian national team. So she's had to adjust to being in, different positions and places. And I think now things are just settling in. I do think she, going back with her national team helped her. I think it helped and hindered. I think it helped her mentality. I think it hindered just being with our team. And now, I think now she's adjusted to this is what it is. I think she's slowing down. The game is coming a little bit, clearer to her, and she's able to just utilize her entire skill set because she's long, she's athletic. She can do a lot of things with the basketball. I think once she takes her time and sees the game coming, she can facilitate from being at the point. At the forward. I think she's still got guard. She's got a guard mentality. She is a guard, really. It's just unfortunate that we aren't able to play her, at the various spots throughout the season because we got 15 players, 15 eligible players.
With it being postseason play, how much does it help being able to play a lot of bench players and allowing starters to rest?
We like to call them reserves. Oh,
sorry. Just reading off Zoom.
I got you. We've been building. Creating a lot of confidence with our second and third units. We got actually 3 units of players, and I know they've been chopping at the bit to play. But we want to make sure when we play good basketball. They have a really good understanding of what we want to accomplish because it's all learning. We don't want this year to be a year in which they miss some steps. So when next year comes, they're not repeating the same mistakes. So it's pretty cool that in this type of setting you can utilize. I think we played, I don't know, 11 players. So I think that's pretty cool. Unlike a whole lot of teams that's here at the tournament.
Don, Arkansas is such a tough team. It just feels like no matter what the lead is, they're always capable of getting back into it with the way they shoot the ball. How did you like your team's focus in this game for the entire game? And also, how tricky was this opponent for an opener?
I mean, Arkansas is Arkansas. They're going to put you back on your heels. They're going to shoot threes. They're going to drive it down your throat. Very, very little in between as far as mid range besides Ramirez. So you know exactly how they're going to play in their style of play. You have to lock in. I thought we locked in for the most part. I thought there were a couple of lapses in the first half and second half where we didn't communicate early enough, and they made us pay for it. But we got a seasoned team that really, rebuild, touched on it. They really lock into the personnel. They really lock in on the tendencies that we'll face, and there's not a whole lot of opportunities that we let our guard down from a defensive standpoint.
Hey, Dawn, I wanted to ask on an update on Destiny Littleton. What happened there, and how is she doing right now?
She got the wind knocked out of her. But I mean, she came back. I just checked on her. She said she's fine.
All right, Dawn Staley, USC women off to a good start. SEC tournament. Nobody's surprised that they took care of business with Arkansas today. Now they get ready for Ole Miss tomorrow as they hope to roll through the SEC tournament and add that trophy to the regular season championship trophy that they picked up prior to today's game. Let's give you the recruiting report for tonight. How about a little early recruiting on this Friday night? Brought to you by Seawells. I was hoping to get out there for Roast Beef Friday today, Pat, but I got locked down getting ready for the show tonight and couldn't scoot out there. I hope you made it out there to have some delicious roast beef.
I did, Corn, and I probably ate enough for both of us. I had plenty of their roast beef and 2 pork chops. They were outstanding.
Yeah, I hate you. I really do. I wish I'd made it out there because I know it was a great lunch today. RBF, Roast Beef Friday. Well, this one's in the history books, but there'll be more. They'll have it again next week. Sometimes they surprise us with roast beef on like Wednesday. The point is, the daily luncheon buffet 11 to 2 is fabulous at Seawells, and you are doing yourself a personal disservice to your stomach by not going over there and enjoying it at least once a week. It's there Monday through Friday, $12 for all you can pack on the plate, and they will take great care of you there at Seawells. And, of course, for the very best in the catering business, you need them to come to you, or you want to host your event at their facility. Just give Seawells a call. They have been very, very busy with a lot of events here recently. Now that things have kind of gotten back to normal, it's a great time to have a party or a wedding or some kind of event. Let Seawells do the heavy work. 803-771-7385. Online at SeawellsCateringSC.com. So, again, big recruiting story of the day, G.G. Jackson of Ridgeview naming a top 6 USC, Duke, North Carolina, Auburn, Georgetown, and the G League. And a couple of weeks from now, he should probably have a decision, is what he is indicating, which is what his dad had told us they'd probably do. Take a couple of weeks after the season, relax, think things over, check off the boxes, and see who's left. So we'll be keeping a close watch on that. Football-wise, Clemson's having a junior day tomorrow. Going to have a bunch of players in to watch their spring practice. One will be receiver Chris Culliver, 6'3", 180 of Maiden, North Carolina, not related to the Chris Culliver who played at USC and in the NFL. He has a USC offer, and Shane Beamer offered last summer. Clemson receivers coach Tyler Grisham likes him a lot, too. They've been talking a lot, and he made a decision to come in on Saturday to see Grisham, talk more with him, and see if maybe he's going to leave with an offer. Time will tell on that. If he gets that Clemson offer, he said he can start to trim his list because he's kind of waiting to see what Clemson is going to do. Meantime, Beamer wants him to visit as well, and he sent him some dates and said to pick any date in April. So they want him to come in next month. They offered him after seeing him in a 7-on-7 camp in Columbia. He also wants to visit Michigan State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Miami in the coming weeks if he can work it out. He's one of the top receivers in North Carolina, 62 catches, 1,310 yards, 26 touchdowns last season. Also, coming into Clemson on Monday will be safety Bryce Thornton, 5'10", 185 of Alpharetta, Georgia. His father was a running back at Georgia back in the day, Bruce Thornton, and he camped at Clemson last June. And corners coach Mike Reed and safeties coach Mickey Kahn have been recruiting him. So there seems to be a lot of interest there. They have not offered yet. He cited LSU, Florida, Auburn, and Georgia as some that are standing out. He's going to Alabama Saturday, LSU April 2nd. He also plans to visit Florida and Ohio State. There's a couple of other notes we'll give to you after the break. Then Mike Morgan will join us as well from Morgan on the Move. We're back in a moment.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's your weekend forecast. Getting warmer. Will cool tonight to 50 as a low. Tomorrow a mix of sun and clouds and back up to 80 as our high. Similar on Sunday with partly sunny and partly cloudy conditions and a high reaching 85. Monday also pretty warm with a high of 86. Next week cooler with highs in the 60s. Rain possible on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Hey, it's Jay with the Melting Pot. Have you missed any special occasions in the last couple of months? Or are you planning a special occasion? What about graduation? That'll be here before you know it. And it's not just about a meal, it's sitting around a table and spending time together, reconnecting. When you come in, we encourage you to take your time, or you can just come in for dessert. We're still at 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard. Give us a call, 731-8500.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. Former Vice President Mike Pence is urging Republicans to move on from the 2020 election. And he's declaring that there is no room in this party for apologists for Putin as he escalates his break with former President Donald Trump. Pence will be speaking Friday evening to the party's top donors at a gathering in New Orleans. Excerpts from his speech were shared ahead of his remarks. Pence has been working to differentiate himself from Trump as he lays the groundwork for a possible 2024 presidential run. On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down by 179 points to close at 33,614. The Nasdaq dropping 224 points, the S&P 500 lower by 34, and oil up to $115.68 a barrel. This is SRN News.
Are you looking for free checking and free savings? Dave Ramsey here, telling you to go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank that's so big they lose the ability to treat you like a human being. At Palmetto Citizens, you're not just a number, you're a member. Join today at any of their 14 locations or at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Oh, good, you're home. I need your help.
Doing what?
Replacing our old light bulbs with these new energy-efficient LEDs.
Where did you get these?
Dominion Energy. I ordered direct from their online store. LEDs for every room, all at huge discounts.
Oh, really?
Yes, really. And my 15-bulb order got us free shipping.
Sounds too good to be true.
See for yourself at DominionEnergySC.com.
Where?
DominionEnergySC.com.
Certain restrictions apply.
There's something special about a lasting relationship. You know, I started off as a customer of Stone Interiors almost 15 years ago. Well, that relationship grew, and they've been a partner now of the Point since we launched more than 8 years ago. Relationships matter. People matter. Local matters. Stone Interiors is all about being local, all about customer service, and all about building a great relationship with their customers. I'm proud to call the folks over there my friends. That's all well and good. But what about their granite? What about their marble? What about their craftsmanship? I know all about this as their customer. It is elite. They're the best at what they do. They have the largest selection of granite anywhere to choose from. They have the top team to do the installation. So if you've been considering new countertops, a kitchen backsplash, that bathroom remodel, or even an amazing outdoor kitchen, treat yourself right. Call Stone Interiors. Nobody does it better. You'll brag about them the same way I do. Check out their website, stoneinteriors.com, or give them a call, 461-8950. That's 461-8950. Remember, Relationships matter. I know you'll enjoy working with Stone Interiors.
Experience matters when it comes to taking care of your loved one. At Oakley Village, Lexington, we have a leadership team that has over 100 years of caring for seniors. This means we have the experience you need. You can rest assured that your loved one is receiving exceptional care when living at Oakley Village. Don't trust the most important person in your life with anyone. Trust the experts. Trust Oakley Village. Call us at 803-808-3477 or visit us at oakleyvillagelexington.com.
Is that crack in your windshield or your house bothering you?
Have you been meaning to have it replaced but just can't find the time?
Call Absolute Glass, voted Lexington's best glass shop for 12 years in a row.
We repair and replace glass on all makes and models.
We're the only local high-end auto glass specialist in the Midlands, and we'll come to you to make the process quick and easy.
With new technologies and vehicles, we can recalibrate your vehicle back to new.
Visit AbsoluteGlassInc.com to learn more about our auto, home, and business glass services. Just remember, if you can see through it, we can do it.
All right, Mike Morgan joining us in just a moment here on Sports Talk. Couple of quick notes to finish up on, then we'll get to Mike wrapping up the recruiting. Some more visitors to Clemson tomorrow. Linebacker Tony Rojas of Fairfax, Virginia. Athlete Zaire Gamble of Sumter. Cornerback Quintavious Billingsley of Phoenix City, Alabama. Also, Clemson target cornerback Braxton Myers to visit Florida State. USC target athlete Ahmad Brown, offered by Mississippi State. Another USC target, defensive end Jabron Harvey, was at North Carolina yesterday. USC target cornerback Sharif Denson was at Florida yesterday. Sumter defensive end Montague Rames was offered by Ole Miss. 2024 linebacker Andrew Hines III of Atlanta was at Clemson for a visit on Thursday. Wide receiver Daniel Hayes of Pensacola, Florida, he plans to visit Clemson on March 14th. And that is it for recruiting, brought to you by Seawells. We'll be tracking things over the weekend, so keep an eye on the website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. Updating the 3A Girls State Championship, Camden is leading Keenan second quarter, 16-11. In those state championship games played earlier today, in the 1A classification, it was Calhoun County winning their 10th under Zam Frederick, 53-49 over Scotts Branch. 53-49 Calhoun County over Scotts Branch. And we also had the Military Magnet girls, and they were 35-20 winners over the girls team from Denmark, Oler. And Coastal Carolina baseball, they are playing North Carolina today, and they are leading 3-2 in that game up in Chapel Hill in the bottom of the seventh. So it'd be a great win for Coastal. I think they're playing a series up there this weekend. Be a great way to start the weekend for Coastal Carolina. And Joe Call, former Citadel quarterback, former head coach at Somerville and Oceanside Collegiate, going back to the Citadel to be the director of football operations. And with that, we welcome in a man who is once again on the move. You cannot keep up with Mike Morgan. He is always somewhere. Mike Morgan, Morgan on the move, joining us here on Sports Talk. He is brought to you by the good folks over at Play It Again Sports. Play It Again Sports, of course. They can take care of you over in the Harbison area of Columbia. Chris Mosley and the guys over there will fit you with some of the best equipment you can get your hands on. Some of it might be previously used. Some of it might be brand new, but you can buy and you can sell all in one place at Play It Again Sports. All right, Mikey, welcome in. Where are you this weekend? I know you've got a little basketball, football, and baseball, don't you?
Well,
not football.
Not
I'm sorry. Basketball and baseball. Yeah.
They haven't called me for the USFL yet, although I'd be glad to do a Birmingham Stallion game. No, I've got SEC basketball tomorrow. great baseball matchup on Sunday, top 25 of Miami versus Florida. Hurricanes and Gators, that'll be game 3 of that 3-game series as we kind of figure out, what these teams are made of in each league this year. And then Monday will be the Sun Belt Championship. And as you already know, the Chanticleers will not be playing in that, but we'll see by the time we get to Monday who will be the final 2 teams.
All right, very good. So let's talk about the weekend series here between South Carolina and Clemson. And what's your take on these 2 teams right now out of the national polls for the most part? You have to go maybe down into the 30s or 40s. But I think there are 2 teams that, as the season goes on, might have a chance to impress some people. South Carolina's got some pitching concerns going on right now. What do you think of the matchup this weekend?
Well, it's so early to tell, as you know. I could go on my annual soapbox that I wish this series was played later in the year. When both teams are playing at an optimal level, when basketball is still not fresh on the brain for many fan bases across the country. And people might say, well, wait a minute now. I mean, maybe it's not so much fresh on the brain in the Palmetto State this year. Well, again, if you want to know why tonight's game is not nationally televised, it's just because it falls on the calendar. It's no disrespect to the Carolina-Clemson rivalry. It just continues to fall so early on the calendar. At least the weather, as I understand, it's supposed to be good. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's nothing worse than a great rivalry played in cold, blistering conditions.
Yeah, we're going to have great weather this weekend.
That's
and a great
good.
atmosphere, I would imagine, for all 3. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate for South Carolina that they go into this weekend with only one of their planned weekend starters available.
Right.
If you talk to Mark Kingston, a couple of months ago and asked him, okay, put down on paper who your weekend starters might be. Well, 2 of them are definitely out. They've been dealing with a rash of arm injuries with some of their top arms. Guys will be back next year. That's great, but it's not going to help them this year. So how do you make up for that? I guess you have to just trust that the depth of your pitching staff can come through in a situation like this.
Well, that's it. That and of course you can have your offense really step up and take some pressure off what's going to be a depleted staff. I mentioned the game that I have. Miami's ace has dead arm and won't pitch. Now think about that. We're only in early March, and a guy has dead arm. I had an assistant coach tell me last week. He said, "Don't be surprised this year if you have more pitching injuries than usual." I said, "Well, goodness, we've already had a rash of them the last few years. How much more can we take?" But remember now, 2 years ago, we had no season because of COVID, or basically no season. We played, I don't know, a fifth of one. And then last year, they couldn't play in the Cape. They couldn't play summer league ball. So a lot of these guys that ordinarily, a lot of these pitchers that would have been pitching a lot over the last couple of seasons and off seasons, they just haven't had the work. And so all of a sudden now you're putting more stress on that arm for a full regular season that maybe, they would have had some more amp up time. I just think it's an interesting theory. We'll see if it holds out. I hope it doesn't, obviously. But we have already had a lot of arm injuries, a lot of guys that their velo's down. They just haven't been as effective. And I just hope that's not a trend that we see, because it's not like pro ball. Pro ball, that happens. You just make a phone call to AAA, problem solved. You don't have that in baseball and college baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can destroy a season. And I hate it. But that's kind of the way it's set up.
We can't take any of that. Want to see these teams at their best. Mike, I wanted to ask about Clemson specifically. They come out of the chute 8-0. You always have to take, level of competition into account. But where is the reputation of Clemson baseball right now? Not a ranked team in quite a while, but they look really, really good early on. What do you think your colleagues, and people in other parts of the country think about Clemson baseball now?
Well, that's kind of 2 questions in one. I mean, the season is young, and so I don't get overly excited about stats and records at this point, because you can make them look as good as you want to, depending on how you schedule. There's some teams that really beefed up on the out of conference schedules and the early season tournaments. And you're going to take losses when you do that, and your individual stats are not going to look as good. But I would argue it's better preparation for the long haul. By the same token, if you've got a team that you're not really sure where they're at, and a lot of newcomers, then you want to build up their confidence. In terms of the perception, it's an interesting question because obviously I look at it a little bit differently now than I did when I was right in the middle of it. I mean, there's still a ton of respect for those two programs. I think it's been less about a decline in Carolina Clemson and more about the ACC last year was the deepest maybe it's ever been. The SEC now has all these programs that have ridiculous facilities. You no longer are ahead of everybody. And so what are your inherent advantages if you're Carolina Clemson? Yeah, we all know that high school baseball is great in the state of South Carolina. Is it better than Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama? I mean, I don't know. Some people would argue it's not. And so it's just so difficult in those two leagues to get to the point where your fans can say, we should be in Omaha every other year. Good luck with that. I mean, that's just really, really hard to do. It makes you appreciate what Jack Leggett, what Ray Tanner did when they did it, because I'm not so sure that's going to be done again for a while. I mean, for example, the last run for Ray, three consecutive World Series, 2 national titles. Before that, 3 consecutive World Series, 02, 03, 04. One, you make it to the title game. Another one, you make it to the semis. Throw in a couple of SEC championships. Jack Leggett was a regular in the regionals and then eventually in Omaha. I mean, it's just really hard, and everybody in those two leagues has gotten better since then. So the perception is still good, but the problem is the perception of so many of the other programs they're going up against has really gotten good too, because they've gotten much better as they commit to baseball.
All right, Mike, last thing, we'll let you go. South Carolina at Auburn tomorrow in basketball. On paper, in real life, truthfully, if things work out, if they can win, some others lose, the Gamecocks could finish 5th in the ACC or will finish 5th. If they win and Alabama and Florida happen to lose, which is really possible, but beating Auburn may not be really possible. Yeah. Let's just say they do. To finish 5th would be pretty incredible for this Gamecock basketball team if they can pull that off tomorrow.
It is, but what people are more concerned about is, are they making the tournament or are they not? And I can tell you this, when talk show hosts in various markets do what they can to sell their fan bases on, we deserve to go, we're getting robbed. You can do that, but if you want to be real about it, it's not about your conference record. That's not what the committee is obsessed with. It's about who you beat and where you beat them. And right now, I had the game against Alabama last. That was a golden opportunity, and Carolina played one of its worst games of the year. That same Alabama team just got smoked by A&M, who now all of a sudden now they're in the conversation ahead of Carolina, even though Carolina beat A&M in College Station. It's great, 4th, 5th, 6th. I mean, wins are wins. That's all great. But at the end of the day, what fans care about the most is whether or not you make the big dance. So what do you have to do to get there? You got to beat Auburn to start. That's a no-brainer. And then you're going to have to do a lot of damage in Tampa. Because, again, the committee's not going to go, they finished 5th in the league, so then the teams that finished 6th and 7th clearly aren't as good. That's not the way the NCAA tournament committee looks at it. That's not the way the net looks at it. That's not the way anybody else looks at it in terms of who gets in and who doesn't.
Yeah, good stuff, Mike. We really appreciate the time. Busy weekend for you. We'll let you go get to it, and we'll check in next week.
You got it, guys. Take care.
That is Mike Morgan. Morgan on the move, truly. And he is as busy as anyone now with college baseball and college basketball intersecting. And speaking of which, we're going to check in with Korn a little bit later. He's got to hustle over to the press box at Founders Park, where the Baseball for It All, registered trademark Phil Kornbluten Sports Talk, is getting going in just a minute. And we'll get you caught up on all the college baseball scores, college basketball scores, and Pat and I are going to talk a little bit about Coach K's swan song when we come back. You're listening to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
I learned that people are just looking for somebody to listen to them. You can't just start cutting somebody's hair and you're going to be quiet the whole time because you're not going to be in business long.
The South Carolina Education Lottery has provided over $800 million to help students attend technical colleges across our state, investing in a new generation of entrepreneurs, just like James. Your passion is our purpose.
Sports fans, are you in it to win it? Join South Carolina's fight against COVID-19 by getting your vaccine today. Vaccines are safe and will help stabilize school operations by bringing us back together safely. The CDC recommends everyone 5 years and older get vaccinated. Visit scdhec.gov/VaxLocator or call 866-365-8110 to find a vaccination station near you. Stay tuned. More Sports Talk is coming up on the Sports Talk Media Network.
It's almost time for the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic. I know we're excited.
Me too. I'm going for all the awesome camping gear.
Not to mention they have everything I need to get out on the river.
I'm looking forward to it. I can always find what I need for my outdoor adventures.
Don't miss the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic at the State Fairgrounds, sponsored by Farm Bureau Insurance, March 25th through the 27th. Purchase your tickets now at psclassic.com.
See you at the Classic.
Touchstone Energy cooperative members save more on electricity, and members save more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, travel, concerts, and sporting events through Co-op Connections. Touchstone Energy is an alliance of the member-owned electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Touchstone Energy and find out how much you can save on electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com.
To Sports Talk. Horn is off to Founders Park for game one. It is Sanders v. Anglin, Clemson v. South Carolina tonight. That one will go at 7 o'clock. We're going to get a check-in with Corn next at 7:30, see how the ball game is going. Another college baseball game we want to get you up to date on is Coastal Carolina. Gary Gilmore's Chanticleers made the trek up to Chapel Hill, where they're facing North Carolina, and you know they are a regional power. And right now, the Chants are leading North Carolina 3-2, game one in a three-game set. That one has moved to the top of the ninth, so we'll keep you up to date on that one. Coastal Carolina, of course, they're a regional power themselves, national champions, but a national championship to their credit. But always cool to see a team from the Sun Belt or any mid-major knock off someone of North Carolina's ilk. So Coastal Carolina going to try to do just that. And you know Gilmore's got some of his charges are from North Carolina, so that'd be a special win. And then, of course, they've got, if they can pull it off tonight, then they've got two cracks at winning the series at Chapel Hill. Not an easy thing to do, but Coastal Carolina clinging to a 3-2 lead right now, top of the ninth in Chapel Hill. All right, Pat, I referenced Coach K. This is it, the big send-off at Cameron Indoor this weekend, and you can go. All you have to do is shell out $5,000, and you can get in Tiny Cameron Indoor for Duke, North Carolina. And this is the way to send him off, right, Pat? Final home game, North Carolina. This is a Duke team. This is one of the more talented Duke teams. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to win the championship, but this is a very talented group in terms of what the talent that's been accrued right there in Durham. And they'll be favored tomorrow over North Carolina. They've got a chance. I think they would wrap up, the 1 seed in the ACC? Or have they already done that? I'll have to check the seedings. They've been on top all season, so they probably are about to wrap up the 1 seed, right? Or have.
They have a 2-game lead currently over both Notre Dame and UNC.
There you go. They've got it. So yeah, they got the 1 seed, but they can send him off with a victory, which is the emotion is what they want. No one will remember whether they were the 1 seed or the 2 seed in the tournament. Everyone will remember if he won his last game at Cameron Indoor against North Carolina.
That's right. And you have to think it will be an extremely emotional game. So I would look to see the Tar Heels try to take advantage of that early and come out of the gate swinging. Because let's remember, up in North Carolina just a few weeks back, it was the opposite. Duke came out really, really hot and almost ran the Tar Heels out of the gym in the first half before it became somewhat respectable in the second half. But this game, you got to think between the loyal fans, between the former players, between all the longtime assistant coaches that have either stayed at Duke or gone on to other programs, just the amount of emotion that will be in Cameron Indoor tomorrow will just be pretty spectacular. I'm really looking forward to watching that game. And now you referenced the prices. Now, let's just a quick math thing here because I am kind of nerdy with the numbers. I love the statistics. If I'm going by what ESPN has said, they are claiming that the average ticket price for that game tomorrow night is selling for $5,307. Well, Cameron Indoor, it's actually a little bigger than most people think. Its capacity is 9,314. So if you multiply those two numbers together, Duke is making a sum of $49,429,398 just in ticket sales tomorrow night. Now, again, there's no way that's completely accurate. You have to factor in season ticket holders and so forth. But just nearly $50 million in ticket sales. It's more than all but 3 of the last 15 Super Bowls for average ticket price. It's just amazing. And the amount of people that want to get out and watch that game, if you have a ticket, if you're a season ticket holder, Smitty, would you sell that or would you keep that or what would you do?
Oh, no, I'm an emotional guy. Memories are priceless. Although you could always sell the ticket and then say you were there anyway. Just like, you know how many people you've met that said they were there the night Ali knocked out Frazier and all of these things, who are there for Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game or when Bird stole the ball. You know, there's no way as many people who have claimed to have been there were actually in the arena or the stadium that night. But I think memories are what's important and I do love this rivalry. I know it's out of our state. It's up the road as part of Tobacco Road, but I do love this rivalry. I love rivalries, period. I love that this college baseball weekend we have got Miami, Florida, and Georgia Tech, and South Carolina, Clemson. So I think it's pretty outstanding that Coach K is going to be sent off in the rivalry game, North Carolina Duke. I want to see this. Obviously, we've got a lot going on tomorrow, and and covering what's going on with South Carolina and Clemson hoops and tracking the Gamecock women through the tournament. And of course, hey, and don't forget, we've got high school basketball championships as well. But I think we'll all keep an eye on, and then we'll all watch the highlights at the very least of what happened in Coach K's final home game. And it's not over for Duke, 4th-ranked team in the country, number 1 seed in the ACC tournament as they move forward. By the way, in-state hoops. Now, Coastal, they got knocked out of their tournament, the Sun Belt tournament. They are no longer there. They lost last night 70-64 to Georgia Southern. Really a rough night for Coastal Carolina. I talked to Chris Bergen, play-by-play voice for Coastal, of course, co-host here on Sports Talk. Talked to him a little bit today as he's making that bus ride back from Pensacola back up to his home in the PD area. And he said, tough sight lines, not an excuse. He said, I want to be clear, this isn't an excuse. Georgia Southern had to shoot in the same arena, but it's just one of those places where the bleachers were pushed back. Tough place. If anybody's ever, kind of attended a ball game at, when they put a basketball court in a football arena and things like that, maybe if you've ever made the trip up to the Carrier Dome and seen a basketball game, I know in Indianapolis every year, the sight lines can be tough to adjust, especially when you don't have the crowd there as the backdrop. And Chris thought that may have affected Coastal Carolina, and it didn't seem to affect Georgia Southern. They hit their shots, and so Coastal's eliminated. Also around the state, the Citadel trying to put away East Tennessee State in the SoCon tournament. They are in overtime. The Citadel leads ETSU 75-69. Bring it home, boys. Winthrop out to an early lead 32-17 over High Point in the Big South tournament. Went through, of course, the 2 seed there. And USC Upstate has already triumphed over Charleston Southern 72-62. Dave Dickerson's crew beat Sparkly Radaball's crew. So Charleston Southern heading home, really difficult year. Radaball's group finishes 3-25. USC Upstate, USC Upstate, meanwhile, will move on in the Big South tournament. They will move on to the semifinals coming up. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, more college hoops. Ralph on Round Ball. We've got Brian Ralph from hoopshype.com joining us next on Sports Talk.
Someone will be right with you. The Point.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. The White House does not agree with GOP Senator Lindsey Graham's call for Russian President Putin to be assassinated. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
Graham tweeted that the only way to end the invasion of Ukraine is for somebody in Russia to kill Putin. At the White House, Press Secretary Jen Psaki took issue with the senator's statement.
No, we are not advocating for killing the leader of a foreign country or regime change. That is not the policy of the United States.
She said President Biden believes a diplomatic resolution to the conflict is still available, and it's up to Putin to de-escalate. Greg Clugston, Washington.
The Supreme Court has reinstated the death sentence for the convicted Boston Marathon bomber.
On a 6-3 vote, the justices agreed with the Biden administration's arguments that a federal appeals court was wrong to throw out the death sentence a jury imposed on Johar Tsarnaev. The bombing killed 3 people near the finish line of the marathon in 2013. In 2020, the First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston ruled that the trial judge improperly excluded evidence that could have shown that Tsarnaev was deeply influenced by his older brother and was somehow less responsible for the bombing. Mike Hempen, Washington.
Former Vice President Mike Pence is urging Republicans to move on from the 2020 election. And he's declaring that there is no room in this party for apologists for Putin as he escalates his break with former President Donald Trump. Pence will be speaking Friday evening to the party's top donors at a gathering in New Orleans. Excerpts from his speech were shared ahead of his remarks. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 179 points. The Nasdaq dropped 224. The S&P 500 lower by 34. And oil up $8 and a penny to $115.68 a barrel. More at townhall.com.
This view was worth a hike.
Right? And it's a good way to stay on top of my health.
Yes, I'm Cologuard, a prescription colon cancer screening option for people 45 plus at average risk. Have you screened for colon cancer?
Not yet.
Don't wait. It's more treatable when caught in early stages.
Tell me more.
Cologuard is non-invasive and it's used at home. It detects altered DNA in your stool to find 92% of colon cancers.
92%?
Yup, even those in early stages.
This was seen in a clinical study with patients 50 and older. Any positive result should be followed by a diagnostic colonoscopy. False positive and negative results may occur. Cologuard is not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. Do not use if you have had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colon cancer.
Most insured patients pay $0. Ask your provider or an online prescriber if Cologuard is right for you, or visit Cologuard.com.
I'm in.
2 big names in Japanese electronics and autos are joining forces to make an electric vehicle together.
Sony and Honda say they've agreed to set up a joint venture this year to start selling an electric vehicle by 2025. The plan is to pair Honda's expertise in mobility development, technology, and sales with Sony's imaging, telecommunications, network, and entertainment expertise. A union of traditionally different manufacturing businesses is uncommon for Japan, but it makes sense in the age of electric vehicles.
correspondent Jeremy House. The joint venture will develop and design the product, but will use Honda's plant for manufacturing. Apple's shareholders have approved a proposal urging the iPhone maker to undergo an independent audit assessing its treatment of female and minority employees. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's your weekend forecast. Getting warmer. Will cool tonight to 50 as a low. Tomorrow a mix of sun and clouds and back up to 80 as our high. Similar on Sunday with partly sunny and partly cloudy conditions and a high reaching 85. Monday also pretty warm with a high of 86. Next week cooler with highs in the 60s. Rain possible on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point. Ooh, you shouldn't have pressed that button. Oh. Now you get this.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
I'll pitch it to you for the back on Sports Talk, just ahead of South Carolina and Clemson. They should be starting up in just a moment. Mac Anglin versus Will Sanders, Gamecocks and Tigers. Phil Kornblut will have an update for us from Founders Park in just a few minutes. And we've got Brian Ralph on Roundball. But, Pat, before we talk hoops, I want you to update. I have jinxed Coastal Carolina. They were, at last check, leading UNC 3-2 in Chapel Hill in game one of their 3-game set. What's happened since?
That's right. We jinxed them. It happens. But bottom of the ninth, an exciting game up in Chapel Hill. The Tar Heels had runners on the corners with one out and then hit a single up the middle. They have now tied the game at 3. Coastal appears to be making a pitching change at the moment, so we're in a brief timeout. But currently is bottom of the ninth, 2-2 count, one out, tie game. So North Carolina has the winning runner aboard in scoring position on second. We'll keep you posted.
All right. In the meantime, we will talk hoops. And, of course, South Carolina and Clemson close out their regular seasons this weekend. Coach K leaving the profession in his final season. Duke will host North Carolina at Cameron Indoor. So Coach K will get to say goodbye to Cameron Indoor, win or lose against North Carolina. And that's going to be a great moment. Brian Ralph joining us now. Brian, what your whole life, my whole life, Coach K has been a big part of it, right, in college basketball. It's not going to be the same sport without him.
It's really not, and I think it's kind of unfortunate. I'm happy it's going to be a big event on Saturday. It seems like there's going to be wall-to-wall coverage for the entire day. I've already seen some people start to feel a little nauseated or be a little annoyed by it, but I hope that even the biggest Duke haters can at least take a second to appreciate his career and what he's been able to accomplish. Because a lot of the reason why people hate him and people hate Duke is just because of how successful he's been and what he has turned that program into. And I think at the end of his career, it's the perfect time to take a step back. And no matter how you feel about Duke, at least reflect on that and maybe offer a tip of the cap.
Brian, I just mentioned just how big a shadow he has cast over college basketball. You go back to the first championships, 91, 92, the Hurley, Leitner, Grant Hill groups. And the reputation then for Duke was, they're going to get those guys that'll be heady basketball players that are committed to the college game. He's not going to go out and get your NBA style guys. That was really something back then that was happening at UNLV and Michigan and even North Carolina to an extent. But how he has changed, because one thing about Coach K is he has evolved. And if you're listening to this show right now and you're 25 years old, you may not understand what Duke basketball used to stand for, or at least its reputation, against what kind of players they get now.
Yeah, and a lot of that came in when the one and done rule came into place, right? The best basketball players, best high school basketball players were no longer those 3 and 4 year career college guys. And I do think it took Coach K and Duke a little bit to adjust. I mean, you can look back at the mid 2000s through the 2010 national championship team, that 4 or 5 year period. Duke wasn't very good. Certainly by Duke standards, they were still making the tournament every year. They didn't have any real craters, but they were not legitimate threats on the national stage, and even in the ACC weren't real threats because they didn't have that level of talent and were getting passed up by other teams who were getting that one and done talent. I think Coach K saw that and adjusted because above all else, he is a competitor and a supreme competitor, and you need to have the best talent win basketball games, and saw what needed to happen to make that happen, made the adjustment, and that was the big reason why they ended up winning his last national championship, at least so far, his last national championship in 2015.
Brian, what are the chances that Duke sends him out, not just a winner tomorrow at Cameron Indoor, but, cut down the nets this year because they're ranked 4th in the country? I know you're not an odds maker, but I do have in front of me that in Vegas, essentially, they have about the 5th best odds. They're right there in the neighborhood with Auburn and Purdue. How do you think this team stacks up as far as the ability to make a run, close it out? Do they have enough veteran leadership to do that?
At their best and at their peak, they absolutely can. Like their best, you could put up against anybody else's best, and they could win. I mean, we saw that happen against Gonzaga earlier this season. Their ceiling is as high as anybody else's in the country. The problem is we don't always get that ceiling. And so often, and we talked about it on here, throughout ACC play, as we've gotten their B game or C game, or sometimes even D game, on a more consistent basis than we've gotten their A plus game. And there are a number of different factors for that. They're not a great perimeter shooting team, although the emergence of A.J. Griffin has certainly helped that. They're not a great rebounding team, and they're not a deep team. They do have some flaws, but everybody else in the country is flawed. They have perhaps the most talented player, certainly the most talented offensive player, in Paulo Banchero. Trevor Keels, when he's on, is great. Mark Williams is one of the nation's best defenders. I think they have as good of a chance as anybody. The difference is that between them and some of the other contenders is that we generally know what we're going to get from the Gonzagas or the Arizonas or even the Baylors on a night-to-night basis, and we don't necessarily know that for Duke.
Well, let's go a little closer to home. Frank Martin said to the media yesterday or the day before, he mentioned, hey, if we knock off Auburn at their place, we go to the Plains and beat the 5th-ranked team in the country, we deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. Now, their net ranking does not say that they are within shouting distance. Where do you have them? Let's say they pull that upset off. What do you think happens to their net ranking, and what happens to their reputation among the committee members?
So, that Auburn victory would have meant a lot more a month ago than it would now, because Auburn has been stumbling a little bit here down the stretch. Some of that has to do with the different Auburns that we get when they play at Auburn Arena versus when they play on the road. But Auburn is not the number one invincible-looking team that we thought they were a month ago. Still an awesome team. Would be a great win, certainly. It would be a win that would put South Carolina, I think, into the bubble conversation. In the back end of the bubble conversation, on the wrong side, but it would at least propel them in there. I think you're looking, you would need that win and probably another signature win, maybe 2 in the SEC tournament to make the NCAA tournament. The Gamecocks are one of the few teams, I think, that are still outside of the bubble conversation that are in position to potentially make a move up and actually get into the tournament without winning their conference tournament. The path that's in front of them, the level of competition is certainly steep, but that also presents the opportunity to get those big wins that a lot of other teams simply don't have. If they're able to beat Auburn, if they're able to pick up a win or 2 in the SEC tournament of the top end variety, and get to the SEC tournament semis or even the SEC tournament championship game, I think then it becomes a very interesting conversation. But that has to start somewhere, and that would be where the Auburn game comes into play.
There are 2 narratives about Frank Martin, and I think I'm of 2 minds when it comes to Coach Martin. You obviously have the narrative that, hey, this guy is a notable coach. Everyone knows him. He gets calls from CBS all the time. He's a media darling in a way. His teams get better throughout the season. That's always evidenced. His players get better. He can coach the game. He's been to a Final Four. That's one narrative. The other one is, he's been to a Final Four. That was his only NCAA appearance. No one thinks that one appearance in what is now his 10th season is good enough at an SEC school. His players do get better. The problem is Bruce Pearl walked into Auburn and had that program in better shape in the snap of a finger and just blew right past him. Rick Barnes did the same thing at Tennessee. So when I lay those two narratives out, which one do you believe you're closer to, Brian, and maybe the people you work with, the other writers that you visit with?
We're probably closer to the latter, but somewhere in the middle. Because he is a good coach. He's a notable coach. He is responsible for some of the best seasons in South Carolina history and certainly the most notable NCAA tournament run in South Carolina history. At the same time, though, one NCAA tournament is not going to cut it. And there are some extracurricular factors as to why it hasn't been more. You look at back in the first couple of years of his tenure, it was pretty much a big rebuild. So if you're looking from an NCAA tournament perspective, you can probably throw those first 3 years out of the window. The Final Four run probably came, not that they were going to make a Final Four run next year, but that kind of success probably came a bit ahead of schedule. So you had some early departures, and then, of course, you had a couple of key players on that team fall victim to some off-court scenarios that ultimately ended their basketball careers at South Carolina. So then you're essentially pressing the reset button again after that. So you can probably throw 4 or 5 years, half of his tenure, away as not having legitimate NCAA tournament expectations. I think that's true, while also saying that since that Final Four trip, there has not been that rebuild. There has not been that steady build up and signs of promise for the future. I think the group they had last year, 2 years ago, was the building blocks of that. And I know COVID obviously threw a big wrench into things there, but those teams got worse, didn't get better. The momentum behind the program hasn't been there the last couple of years. And this team certainly is good, but they're not NCAA tournament good, at least right now. You'd like to see them string some of these wins together that we just talked about to get some of that momentum. He'll get another year because of how well they played this year relative to last year. But the clock is still certainly ticking on his tenure.
All right, this is your time of year, Ralphie. I know you're having a ball. Final question, we'll let you go. Best team in the country right now. I know who's number one. Gonzaga's at the top, but who's the best? Are they the best team?
Gonzaga, yeah. When they were struggling in December, had lost the 2 games to Alabama and to Duke, there were legitimate issues. They were not a good three-point shooting team. They were turning the ball over a bunch. And Chet Holmgren, who number one freshman in the country, their best player, had not played up to that caliber yet. Well, he has settled in now. He is now playing like one of the best players in the country. Gonzaga, since the Alabama loss, has been one of the very best three-point shooting teams in the country. And while they still turn the ball over a little bit more than you would like occasionally, part of that is due to how they play, and they are certainly above average in the turnover department as well. They have fixed their mistakes. That, plus the talent that they have, plus the experience, I think it all comes into play. They are not a perfect team. They're not as good as last year's team. That's the conversation we always have with Gonzaga and Baylor when they're good is, are they better than last year's team? They're not, but they don't have to be. I think they're still good enough to win the national championship this year, and right now are playing as well and as consistently as anybody in the country.
Well, like I said, your time of year, I'm sure you're going to be watching like the Big Sky tournament or something, or the WAC or something late tonight. Enjoy it. We'll check in with you. This is going to be a lot of fun over the next month or so.
We have the Ohio Valley semifinals on tonight, Morehead State and Belmont at 10:30. That's a game that whoever wins that, if they could beat Murray State, could be a team nobody wants to face in the first round.
Oh, I love it. So much fun. All right, Ralphie, we'll check in with you next week.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Brian Ralph on Roundball, hoopshype.com. Pat, I can't follow him with the Ohio Valley Conference, but I do like to pay attention to our in-state teams. I do like to track what Winthrop's up to, what USC Upstate is doing, and what the Citadels, what's happening with the Citadel.
Speaking of the Citadel, that game up in North Carolina and Asheville has gone final in the SoCon Championship first round. The Citadel has defeated East Tennessee State in overtime, 84-76. They had a pretty monster game from senior Hayden Brown, and I just had it in front of me. He had 27 points and 17 rebounds to lead the way for the Bulldogs. So quite a performance for them up in Asheville.
All right. Go El Cid. So they win 84-76. Winthrop is going to beat High Point and move on in the Big South quarterfinals. They will end up in the semifinals, they're beating High Point currently 47-24. That game about midway through the second half. And USC Upstate has eliminated Charleston Southern. Charleston Southern season is over. That's it for the Buccaneers this year. USC Upstate, meanwhile, will move on to the semifinals. We'll take a break. When we come back, two things to take care of. One, we've got to check on what's happening in Chapel Hill between Coastal Carolina and UNC. And two, we've got Jeff Owens talking NASCAR in the fast lane. We handle that when we come back. This is Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
Back on Sports Talk, we'll have Jeff Owens join us just a moment. We'll talk a little Vegas and NASCAR. But first, we've got to get you up to date on what's going on with Coastal Carolina and North Carolina up in Chapel Hill. Pat, what's the latest?
Heartbreak for the Chants. Unfortunately, North Carolina, like we had said, Coastal was leading 3-2 going into the bottom of the ninth. North Carolina had got runners on base. They ended up having back-to-back singles and had a walk-off single up the middle to defeat the Chanticleers 4-3. So that's your final up in Chapel Hill. Also, I thought for sure Coastal must have been making a pitching change. I'm just following this along on stat broadcast. Do not have it on the television screen. But it appeared they just had a mound visit, I guess, to try to figure out some kind of strategy of facing that final batter for the Tar Heels. Unfortunately, did not work out today for the Chants. But a great game up in North Carolina, resulting in a walk-off win for North Carolina, 4-3.
All right, that's a shame, but Coastal Carolina gets two more cracks at the Heels later this weekend. Of course, we've also got an update coming South Carolina and Clemson from Founders Park. Phil Kornblut will provide that in a few minutes. But first, let's go racing. Jeff Owens.
Love it when it's forward. Love it when it's fast. Love it when the leaders talk. The pack is moving past. Love it when they're making lots and lots of noise. Can't wait to hear these doubles say. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys. Let's go racing, boys. Love it when they're drafting. Love it when they slide. Love it when the back straight, the throttle's open wide. Love it when they're making lots and lots of noise. Can't wait to hear these doubles say. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys. Let's go racing, boys.
Oh, we go racing. Jeff, I haven't talked to you in forever, man.
How are you?
Good. Good, Jeff. I haven't talked to you, man. Good to talk with you. I hope you're enjoying everything going on. Hoops, baseball, NASCAR. Everybody on this show, they know you as a NASCAR guy, but you've covered it all.
Yeah, watching a little Gamecock Clemson baseball right now, getting ready for the race this weekend, and should be an exciting weekend of sports.
Smitty, did we lose you?
Well, let's start. Oh. No, I'm here. Jeff, let's start with Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. What is the latest with these teammates?
Yeah, that was kind of an unfortunate incident at the end of the race last week. I think it was just a mistake and an accident on Kyle Larson's part. Chase was, Chase had a tough race. He was at the front, wrecked a couple of times, went to the back, and then drove all the way back to the front. And they were racing at the front of the pack there, and Kyle, his teammate, apparently didn't see him and got into him and cut a tire and caused Chase to spin again. And Chase was not happy, but from what I understand, they talked about it after the race and sort of put it behind them. So I think everything's okay. It's just one of those things that happens. That was a wild race. There were a lot of people slipping and sliding all over the track, getting into each other, and really not all that surprising to see two teammates wind up getting into each other. That just sort of happens sometimes. And but these are two good guys, two good teammates, and I think they were able to put it behind them pretty quick and move on.
Well, how about the fan bases, though? The fan base is going to be okay?
Well, that might be another story. Chase has got a tremendous fan base, a huge fan base, probably as big a fan base as Dale Jr. had. He's been the most popular driver the last few years now, and got a very passionate group of fans behind him, and they certainly were not happy about it. And they made their disapproval known on social media and a lot of other ways throughout the week. So it may take them a little bit of time to get over it, but I think they will. If this were another driver, a non-teammate that they got into it with, this would linger for a while, and they wouldn't forget, and it would probably lead to some interesting stuff going on. But since it's a teammate, I think it'll blow over pretty quickly.
All right, we have been hearing about the next-gen car for some time now, Jeff. If I were to ask you to, just tell us as you look ahead, is this year, the past few years, by the way, it seems like the best drivers have been with the best teams in the best rides, and it's led to some, I guess some results that we all could have seen coming. But if I were to say, Jeff, look into the crystal ball, is this year going to be more like years past, or because of the next gen car, less like years past?
Well, I think the jury is still out on that. I think we need to get a few more races under our belt to really get a clearer picture on that. But if you just go by what we saw last week, I think it's going to be less of that. The first two races of the year, we've seen exactly what NASCAR promised with this new car, and that's tremendous parity. And last week was a tremendous example of that, because you had all sorts of different drivers and different teams running up front with a chance to win that race. And we saw some surprises in the end. Daniel Suarez, who's with a team that's only in its second year, was racing for the win at the end. And Austin Dillon was up there. Tyler Reddick led the most laps last week. One of the best stats I've seen so far is that in the first two races, 19 different teams have top 10 finishes. And that's amazing. And that's skewed a little bit by Daytona, which we know is a little bit of a different race, and a lot of wrecks and a lot of things can happen there. But I think everybody was thrilled with what they saw last week. It was great racing on a track that usually doesn't produce good racing, but really close racing last week, very competitive, and you had a lot of different drivers and different teams up there battling for the win. So if that's an indication of what's to come, then I think it's going to be a really exciting season with a lot of parity and a lot of different winners. And we'll see this week. This stretch right here out west is a good indication of what we're going to see. A 2-mile track last week. Now we go to a 1.5 mile track at Las Vegas. We'll see what happens. But so far, so good with this new car.
I saw there is a computer out there that has picked Martin Truex Jr. for the win in Vegas. Quickly, do you think that's and I know in Vegas, I'm sorry, on the odds, he's not the favorite. I mean, Las Vegas, geographically, the CBS computer has picked him. What are your thoughts? Truex got a good shot this weekend?
I think so, yeah. I mean, he's got a couple of wins out there. He's certainly got a shot. I think you got to look at Larson, though. I mean, he won at Vegas last year. He's the best driver out there on those tracks. He's got to be your overwhelming favorite. But Truex should be there. I look for Denny Hamlin to be tough. This needs to be a good bounce back week for Joe Gibbs Racing because they really struggled last week. So it'd be great for them to see Truex or one of those guys bounce back and get a win this week.
All right. Enjoy the weekend, Jeff. Baseball, basketball, NASCAR. We'll check in later.
All right. Have a great weekend, guys.
That's Jeff Owens. Phil Kornblut joins us in Birdies and Bogeys when we come back.
As our high similar on Sunday with partly sunny and partly cloudy conditions and a high reaching 85. Monday also pretty warm with a high of 86. Next week, cooler with highs in the 60s. Rain possible on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
When you think about spring, good stuff springs to mind. Like spring break.
Woohoo!
A friend springing for drinks.
Thanks, dude.
A spring in your step. Spring fever.
Oh, behave.
And best of all, spring water dough pizza from the Mellow Mushroom Pizza Bakers.
Yeah, baby!
Experience the taste of spring with our amazing hand-tossed pies, spring fresh salads, and over 100 beers from around the world. Enjoy spring at the Mellow Mushroom in the Vista and on Sunset in Lexington.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. In a bitter and emotional speech, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky criticized NATO for refusing to impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine, saying it will fully untie Russia's hands as it escalates its attack from the air. In a nighttime address, he said the people who are killed in the coming days will have died because of NATO's weakness. On Friday, NATO refused to impose a no-fly zone, warning that to do so could provoke widespread war in Europe with nuclear-armed Russia. He said Ukrainians will continue to resist and have already destroyed Russia's plans for a lightning invasion, quote, having endured 9 days of darkness and evil, unquote. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 179 points, the Nasdaq dropped 224, the S&P 500 lower by 34. This is SRN News.
If you're like me, you're sick and tired of seeing these old TV stars, game show hosts, these athletes telling you how to save money on your Medicare and on your health insurance. These national toll-free numbers are overwhelming us. It's not that people don't need the service. They need good local customer service, not big box toll-free numbers. See, I work directly with Tim Hanberry right here at Medicare Blueprint in the Midlands. When it comes to my family, I want the best family plan. I'm not even on Medicare, but my mom is. So here's what I do want. Someone local to serve as my advisor on the plans and choices that I have, and someone to help mom with her Medicare. I want someone to help me pick the right plan, save me as much money as possible by knowing all the rules of the game. Medicare Blueprint starts the process with you. They will see it through. They answer all your questions. They call you back. It's the same folks helping you start to finish. Tim and his team are independent. They fight for you, not the insurance company. Online, it's MedicareBlueprint.com or call them 708-7398.
Attention listeners, con artists have many tricks for stealing your money, but the AARP Fraud Watch Network is here to help you protect yourself and your family. We give you the tools you need to spot and avoid scams. So listen for the AARP Fraud Watch Network alerts. Use our scam tracking map to see the latest scams and sign up for prevention tips and alerts from law enforcement. To learn how to outsmart con artists before they strike, visit aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. When you're a military veteran with over 40,000 organizations trying to help you, it can be hard to find the right information. That's why AARP brings together valuable resources to help you navigate your options. aarp.org/veterans. With the free veteran employment and fraud prevention resources, caregiving tools, and access to discounts, AARP, on a mission to support veterans. Visit aarp.org/veterans today.
Everyone knows that here at The Point, we are all about supporting local businesses. We are all about local, local, local. You cannot get more local than my friend Greg McCoy and his business, Simplified Mortgage Solutions. Fran Halloran here. If you're buying a home or you're looking to refinance your current home, you owe it to yourself to call Greg. He is the real deal. You can expect Greg to treat you like you are his only client. You can expect Greg to scour the market to find you the best rate available. You can expect Greg to charge you a fair price for his work and his service. Why would you deal with some national company headquartered in who knows where when you can do business with Greg? Need further persuasion? Okay, I didn't even mention the good Greg does in our community by supporting local charities like Blue Star Mothers and Camp Chemo. Come on, you need to call Greg. Online at simplifiedmortgagesc.com, or you can call Greg at 803-722-6044. That's 722-6044. Smitty and Pat back with you, and we'll talk to our golf expert, George Bryan III, with birdies and bogeys in just a moment. Of course, the whole golf world talking about the Arnold Palmer Invitational down at Bay Hill. But first, let's get a quick update from Founders Park. Phil Kornblut on site for the Gamecocks and the Tigers. Corn, do we have first blood yet?
Yes, sir, Smitty. It's 1-0 South Carolina as we play here in the bottom of the second. At Founders Park, Tigers went down in order in the top of the first against Will Sanders. In the bottom of the first, the Gamecocks got runners to second and third with one out. Eister ripped a long fly ball to the track in right field for a sacrifice fly that scored the runner from third. That was Braswell, who was on third. He led off the game with a walk. So it's 1-0 Gamecocks. Tigers threatening the top of the second. First two reached on a walk and a single. So they had first and second, nobody out, but Sanders got a favorable call from the umpire on a called strike three, and then struck out all three batters that he faced after the first two reached. So Tigers could not scratch. They left two. We're at the bottom of the second inning, and two are away. Gamecocks are batting, and they're leading 1-0.
Smitty, you still with us here?
I am. Well, Corn, obviously, pitching has looked good early on. And obviously the Gamecocks were able to scratch that run out against Anglin. But how does Anglin look overall, and how does Will Sanders look overall?
Well, Sanders has looked really good. He had a 6-pitch first inning, and then after getting the first two against him on base in the second, he settled down and, like I said, got 3 straight strikeouts. Anglin came into the game having walked only 5 in his first 2 appearances, but he walked a couple in that first inning, and the first 2 reached on walks, and that led to that Gamecocks run. So he was a little bit off his game there in the first. Came back and looked sharper so far here in the second when I came out of the booth to make the call. Like I said, the Gamecocks' first 2 hitters had made out, so don't know what's happened since then. So looks like both are kind of settling in, getting into their groove, and there's a reason their Friday night starters are the best on the staff, and they're starting to show that here a little bit.
All right, good stuff. Now we're going to take a break and talk a little golf, take a break from you. We'll check back in with you once more before the game is up.
That's a good idea. Take a break from me is a very good idea. Hello, George.
Never want to take a break from you, Phil. Good evening.
Hey, George, welcome into the program with us here. I may have jumped the gun a bit there. We didn't even get your music with you tonight, but thanks for joining Smitty and myself on Sports Talk tonight. How's your week going?
Oh, it's too fast, always too fast, but getting closer to that spring time of the year. Players Championship next week. Augusta just around the corner. It's hard for me to sleep, quite frankly.
I'll bet, George. Now, they're playing down at Bay Hill. It's the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and I know for someone like you that golf has meant so much, it's almost bittersweet to think about when they put that cardigan on at the end of the tournament, just because of what Arnold Palmer meant to the game. And I don't know, what do the players you think now that are out there, these young guns, do they know and respect all that Arnold Palmer meant to the game you love so much?
That is one of the things that is still going strong in golf, and that's tradition. And the reason that these young players do know quite a bit. Now, I can just speak from Wesley, my son, when he won 3 times and got that promotion from the Web. And do you know that that was in 2016? I think Arnold Palmer passed in 2017. I might be getting that wrong, but he sent Wesley a note of congratulations just for winning on the Web.com tour. Now, Wesley framed those notes, and I think he met the king once. But the bottom line is these players absolutely adore what he's done for the game. And the great Tiger himself dominated there for quite a while. But it's really cool about golf. They do pay attention to history. When I say they, the young players, even the veterans, and appreciate history and tradition. So that's my opinion, and I think it's one of the separating factors in golf.
Well, that's great to hear, George. And you just mentioned Tiger Woods, who, like you, just held Arnold Palmer in such reverence, and Tiger just said that all over and over. And of course, as you said, he dominated at Bay Hill. Rory McIlroy has won there a couple of times, and he came out of the chute and dropped a 65 on them yesterday. It faded back a bit today. Shot even par. But what do you think it is about his game that happens to suit that Bay Hill course?
Rory hits it very high. He drives it extraordinarily well. And whereas somebody like Tiger, who played well there, didn't necessarily drive it that great, but he's so spectacular with everything else that he overcame his deficiency. But somebody like Rory is possibly one of the best drivers in history. And then that's the same thing with the young man that's leading, Victor Hovland. He's a great driver of the ball, as Terrell Hatton. And Taylor Gooch, I know for a fact, really drives his golf ball well, or when he's hot, and so does Billy Horschel. So that's the common denominator. Not only do they hit the ball very straight, but they hit it, all these players that I just mentioned, they hit it really long too. Now, Gooch is not quite as accurate, say, as probably had Hovland or Hatton, but it's really pretty neat for me to see as I look at the leaderboard and move on down even Bo Hoffler, and it's got some beautiful mix of veterans, Paul Casey, Laird, Charles Howell III, he's in the top 10. And Charles has got some age, but great golf courses bring out the very best players, and the very best players will always play in that event because of who it's named after. And I love to see that they tag the tournament with his name. And incidentally, I visited the event a couple of times, attended live, watched Wesley play, and it is a spectacular venue and how they treat the players and the fans. Can't leave out the fans. And it's cool to see the fans back flooding the golf courses. Was at the Honda last week. And by the way, I appreciate your forgiveness. Was all set up, ready to go, queued up, and I'm telling you, it was an amazing fireworks show that went off right above my head in the parking lot. I mean, full out with no cell service. Sorry about that, but I appreciate your grace last week.
Well, George, I love hearing you talk about just talk about the game in general. And you talked about great drivers of the ball, which I know would put a smile on Arnold Palmer's face, because some tournaments are built for ball strikers. And for him to have a tournament with his name on it that's built for drivers of the ball, I know he'd like that. Let me ask you more about the game itself. This is one of those invitational tournaments where they'll bring down the number of players. Golf is a great meritocracy. Usually you can play your way in, but this is one of those tournaments that extends those invitations as well. As somebody that loves tradition, do you like that they were able to invite some of those previous winners, which kind of mixes up the leaderboard a little bit with some of these veterans?
You know, you do bring on the invitation. They don't necessarily have to have a qualifier at the invitation, but at a lot of the events are not invitational. Last week, Honda, I was prepared to bring out the qualifiers and how they perform, what they had to do to get there. But I do think the invitationals are special, and they do trim the field. I don't know the number. I guess I could easily reference, like checking it out now, and it doesn't show, but it's roughly probably 120 players ish. Could be a few hundred of that, whereas the normal fields are a little over 140. But I like the invitationals, but I also love I like also the open events. Like the open events give everybody a chance. The invitation gives a chance to bring in, like you mentioned, past champions, players in other parts of the world that aren't necessarily recognized. They can also bring in an amateur or two. And although I'm not prepared to even see who's on if there are any amateurs in this event, but that's I'll say the flexibility that the invitationals offer. And Harbor Town is an invitational, by the way. So that's coming up.
Oh, now that's going to be fun. That's another one that's special. And I know golf in this state is so special to you, George, and the South Carolina Gamecocks women's golf team. They didn't quit. As long as there's golf to be played, scores to be had, birdies to be made out there, and they were in the Darius Rucker, and they had a tough start, but they came back to finish second. And I thought you might be proud of that, the way that team didn't quit to go up and then make some noise at the end.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I went out last spring to watch them play a couple of times, and it is it is a lot of fun. The girls, the women in golf right now are truly impressive. Not just how they conduct themselves, but they're powerful. There's a lot of speed, and the Gamecocks, but also we got great women's golf programs all over South Carolina, and we are, not just the Gamecocks are strong, the Tigers are strong, the College of Charleston team strong, and Winthrop, Coastal Carolina. Coastal had the privilege of watching them play a good bit of golf back a few years ago, several years in a row. Women's golf to me is never been stronger and more fun to watch. And the girls are great.
George Bryan, thank you so much for joining us tonight again on Sports Talk. We do appreciate it. Question for you regarding my personal favorite golfer right now, Jordan Spieth. We've seen him last year. He leapt from 82nd in the world to 14th in the official world golf rankings, which was second among all players, only behind Sam Burns, who jumped from 154th to 11th. He also has added an average of 30 yards to his drive. My question for you is, are we seeing the Jordans? Do you think we're going to continue to see the Jordan Spieth of old? Is he going to be consistent, or what are you expecting to see from him throughout the 2022 season?
Hey, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that he gained that much distance, Patrick. That's a great question. I've admired him for a lot of years. He's got old school short game that could be the best on the tour. He's got new wave, the new players are just incredibly with the I call it the air ball, the lob shot. Jordan Spieth is incredible with the lob shot. He's incredible going old school low, but I didn't realize he'd gained that I didn't know he'd gained that extra length, and that's kind of cool. I would expect him to play better in the majors if he's got the extra length and speed. My guess is that he's trying to focus on the majors, and incidentally, when it gets to the major championships, the top players in the world, they usually target those, prepare for those. So I've never seen anybody more intense at the tournament than Jordan Spieth. He is one of my favorites too. So predictions, I'd say he's won several majors. I would predict him to play better in those majors, especially since you told me he's tacked on this distance. 30's along. That's a lot of yards.
Right. That's significant. Yeah. One more for you too. And if you're not familiar with this yet, it's okay. I just stumbled upon this article, the 2021 Player Impact Program. It's an award that's been given out for roughly a decade now or so on the PGA Tour. It seems to factor in kind of the effect on the game as opposed to just the playing. And what I mean by that is marketability or social media impact and just et cetera, et cetera. Well, Tiger Woods won it for 2021, and he never hit a golf ball once all year. Kevin Na came out publicly today and kind of spoke out against that, saying that he didn't quite understand why, or his exact quote was, "I'm all for paying Tiger Woods $8 million because he made us all richer, but he didn't hit one shot in 2021. PGA Tour, how is this possible? Also, I thought Phil Mickelson should have won. Did this result have any effect over what has happened over the last 2 weeks?" Just a little knock there at Phil. I'm just curious your thoughts on this, and if you could help explain what this award is exactly. Again, I was not really very familiar until this afternoon.
Did you? You blanked out. I've got a connection. Did you say was the name of that tied in with social media impact?
That is correct. Yes, sir. It's called the Player Impact Program, and social media is one of the factors that helps them determine the annual winner.
Oh man, social media. That's kind of like the leaderboard. You look on and see how many followers and how much impact that doesn't lie. So I can't argue with those kind of numbers. And when you are the number one watched athlete on planet Earth, chances are you're gonna have a strong social media presence. Now, whether that makes golf more popular, hey, I love the idea of social media growing golf. So I don't know what Kevin Na said. That's just my opinion. I'm not going to react to that. He's got his ideas, and social media. That sounds like a Grow Golf Award to me, Patrick. I think it's a great question. I also think it's a great award. Social media, especially these young people, they pay attention to it, and I'm all for golf growing. And if he didn't hit a shot and still grew the game, I'd say I'm in favor of such an award. I don't know if I
George
answered your
Bryant.
question. Sorry about being a little off key, man.
No, no, it's good. I'm the one that's long distance, George. Hey, I just wanted to say, so you absolutely answered the question, and it just struck me as I was listening to you talk, how much fun is this that we can talk about social media and Arnold Palmer and the USC women all in one conversation. You're talking about the youth and those that help popularize the game and those that are benefiting from it now, like some of the young players. Pretty cool. I think it's a fun weekend coming up, George, and I'm glad golf weather is here, and I know you are too.
I certainly am, and we always talk about the width and the scope of the game. And I'd love to close out the segment recognizing some local recreation players for their performance on a program called the Winter Tour. It's the Irmo Chapin Winter Youth Golf Tour. It's a recreational program, and congratulations to Brent Wilson and Brooke Burgess. They are the Player of the Year recipients. And then these are the Sportsman Awards, which one of the cool things about golf that makes it separate from all other sports. You're not going to find this Phil's at a baseball game, right? So you're not going to find the Gamecocks clapping for the Tigers when they hit a home run. It just doesn't work that way, or vice versa. But I can tell you, on the golf course, you'll see a Gamecock or a Tiger. You'll see them say, "Hey, that's a good birdie." that's a good hole. That's a good score. They'll congratulate. Now that doesn't mean they're going to pull to lose the match or the event. It's not that, but they pull for good play. And so the sportsmanship award in this program, these players pull for other players. And Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, they followed in the footsteps of Bobby Jones. They pull for everybody to play their best. And the optimal way to compete is you just want as a golfer to play one shot better. And after the round, you're still friends. Now, I think the Gamecocks and the Tigers need to take a little bit of that from golf. And so pull for everybody. It's just a game. It's just a game. So why can't we all be friends afterwards? So congratulations to these players. They pull for each other. Tyson Irvin, Quinn Nicholson, Burke Ryan, Carter Burnett, Hampton Bowling, Dakota Chavis, and Caitlin Gaines. They all won George Elfring Sports Awards on the Winter Youth Golf Tour. How about that?
That is something that ought to stay on the mantle forever because that speaks to character. That's pretty cool. George, we'll let you go. We're going to get back to Corn one more time before it's up. By the way, he played Harbortown on Monday, and they're not certain it's going to recover by the RBC Heritage. That it's in flux.
There you go. I tell you, what a way to close out the segment. Until next week, see them high but shoot them low.
So good to visit with George, talk a little golf, and we'll do it again next week. Hey, we got to take a break, our final break. When we come back, Corn will check in from Founders Park, Clemson and South Carolina update next.
Show your team pride wherever you go with Founders Federal Credit Union's collegiate debit cards. Get your University of South Carolina and Clemson University debit cards at any Founders office or by calling 1-800-845-1614. Plus, our debit cards are digital wallet ready, so you can pay however you please. Not a member? Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
It's almost time for the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic. I know we're excited.
Me too. I'm going for all the awesome camping gear.
Not to mention they have everything I need to get out on the river.
I'm looking forward to it. I can always find what I need for my outdoor adventures.
Don't miss the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic at the State Fairgrounds, sponsored by Farm Bureau Insurance, March 25th through the 27th. Purchase your tickets now at psclassic.com.
See you at the Classic.
Final segment of Sports Talk tonight. Smitty and Pat here with you. Corn is at Founders Park, South Carolina, and Clemson going at it. First of a 3-game set there. South Carolina held a 1-0 lead just a few minutes ago. Pat, do you have the score in front of you? Has that changed?
I do. The Tigers have struck back, and it is actually tied 1-1 now. And Smitty, we have Phil calling in now, so we can try to get a little more details from him from Founders Park. Bear with me 1 second.
All right, so we'll get Corn on the line. If you missed it earlier, and it was a tough one, Coastal Carolina falls to North Carolina 4-3 in game 1 of their 3-game set. That's taking place in Chapel Hill. North Carolina came up with 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th. So Coastal had led 3-2 heading into the top of the 9th, and North Carolina able to pull off the comeback. So unfortunately, Gary Gilmore's crew does take a loss there, but they've got 2 more cracks at the nationally ranked Tar Heels the rest of the weekend. Charleston Southern is leading Samford 15-4. So the Buccaneers way out in front there. Georgia Tech leading Georgia 6-1. That one's in the bottom of the 7th. Another interconference rivalry there. And we've got the big one, the one you've been waiting on, the base brawl for it all. Registered trademark Phil Kornblut and Sports Talk Media Network. Corn, what are we missing out there at Founders Park?
Well, something just happened as I've walked out of the press box to do the report. I think somebody, hearing the cheer and hearing the music, somebody just did something big. Let me double check here. Bottom of the third, we're in a 1-1 ball game, and it's a double by the freshman sensation Braswell down the left field line. So the Gamecocks have a runner at second. Nobody out here in the bottom of the third of a 1-1 game. Let's see. Our last we talked to you, Gamecocks were up 1-0, and then the Tigers in the top of the third, they got runners to first and second, 2 men out. Engel, who's been great for them all year, singled sharply up the middle on a 2-2 pitch that tied the game. The Tigers eventually loaded the bases with 2 outs. Wagner, who's had a big start to the season offensively, he struck out swinging. The Tigers have left 5 on base. It's 1-1. Starters are still in the game, and the Gamecocks have a go-ahead run on second, leading off the bottom of the third here, guys. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thank you, Cord. Follow along on our Twitter feed at SportsTalkSC and check out the website, SportsTalkSC.com, for everything this weekend, Clemson and Carolina related. That's it for us.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
0-1 pitch, swing and a miss, went breaking ball.